I am fed up with internet furor. I am exhausted with internet uproar. I have had all that I can take of internet outrage. Social media is dry kindling that can easily catch a spark. A recent spark came from a 2013 video of Bernardo Bertolucci talking at the Cinematheque Française.
One of the actors in the film, Maria Schneider, she was 19 at the time when the film was recorded. And it was apparently such a strong role for her and made such an impact on the audience that she always was connected to Last Tango in Paris. This is what she had to say about it.
Je ne veux pas parler de Tango, c'est un film, c'est tout, je veux dire. Pourquoi? Parce que c'est le début, c'est pas vraiment le début, parce que j'avais fait des choses avant, donc j'aurais fait des choses de toute façon. Je veux pas toujours, on me rattache toujours à ça. Partout, j'ai toujours le tango avec moi. Basta.
Poor Maria, she died 2 years ago, I think. And I was incredibly sad. After the movie, we really didn't see each other because she was hating me. The scene you have just...
Why did she hate you?
The scene that you've just seen before, which is called the sequence of the butter. It's an idea that I had with Marlon in the morning before shooting it. It was in the script that he had to rape her in a way. And we were having, with Marlon, breakfast on the floor of the flat I was shooting. And there was a baguette and there was butter. And we looked at each other, and without saying anything, we knew what we wanted. And but I've been in a way horrible to Maria because I didn't tell her what was going on, because I wanted her reaction as a girl, not as an actress. I wanted her to react, and she felt humiliated. If it goes on, she shouts, no, no. And I think that she hated me and also Marlon because we didn't tell her that there was that detail of the butter used as a lubricant. I still feel very guilty for that.
Do you regret the fact that you have shot the scene like you did?
No, but I feel guilty. I feel guilty, but I do not regret. You know, to make movies sometime, to obtain something, I think that you have to be completely free. I didn't want Maria to act her humiliation, her rage. I wanted Maria to feel, not to act, the rage and the humiliation. Then she hated me for all life. Terrible.
The mob lit up their torches at an apparent rape confession from Bertolucci. It was clear to them from the director's remarks that during the making of Last Tango in Paris, he and Marlon Brando had diabolically conspired to have Marie Schneider raped by Brando on camera. What followed was social media hysteria at its worst. One person dryly observed, "The online chatter seems to be snowballing." Yes, indeed it was. A few rational men and women called for peace. Tom Sutpin, a film critic, wrote, "Could America please calm down?" But calmness did not prevail. A long thread on my Facebook stream was initiated by Linda Obst, a feature film producer and author. Obst wrote, "This is the most horrifying thing I've ever read. They conspired in this together under the fake cover of art, and we bought it, and he still doesn't get it." One person after another acted with urgency to respond. It was important to let others know how appalled they were by the news. It didn't matter if they said much. A great convenience of modern life is a person's ability to express virtue with brevity. So, brief responses quickly filled the thread. Disgusting, repulsive, horrifying, disturbing, despicable, appalling, unforgivable, abhorrent. One man simply wrote, "Tears in my eyes, ... That just sounds like a man pretending to be deeply sensitive to win over the gals. But this issue is too complex to address with a single word or a fake tear." More than one person called for Bertolucci and Brando to be prosecuted. The fact that these people didn't know that Brando has been dead since 2004 suggests they lack a comprehensive view of the situation. Maybe I can help with a little background information. Schneider said the following about the butter scene to the Daily Mail in 2007. That scene wasn't in the original script. The truth is that it was Marlon who came up with the idea. They only told me about it before we had to film the scene, and I was so angry. I should have called my agent or had my lawyer come to the set because you can't force someone to do something that isn't in the script. But at the time, I didn't know that. Marlon said to me, "Maria, don't worry, it's just a movie." But during the scene, even though what Marlon was doing wasn't real, I was crying real tears. I felt humiliated, and to be honest, I felt a little raped, both by Marlon and Bertolucci. After the scene, Marlon didn't console me or apologize. Thankfully, there was just one take. Here is what Brando said to author Harold Jaffe about the scene. Jaffe, "The fucking in Tango, was that real?" Brando, "Bertolucci wanted frontal nudity, real fucking. I told him I didn't see the film that way, so he backed off." Jaffe, "The butter scene couldn't have been in the script." Brando, "Did you like it?" Jaffe, "Enormously." Brando, "Simulated, no anal penetration, just a little of that French sweet butter, though Maria said later that she'd felt violated." It was pointed out by more than one person that a woman saying she felt a little raped was not the same as a woman saying she was raped. A man wrote, "It's actually rather simple. If she only felt like she was raped, she wasn't raped. Rape isn't a feeling, it's an act." It didn't matter to the angry mob that Schneider and Brando both said in no uncertain terms that no penetration occurred. It was an intense film for Brando and Schneider. The director stripped down the actors emotionally to tell his story. Brando wrote, "When Last Tango in Paris was finished, I decided that I wasn't ever again going to destroy myself emotionally to make a movie. I felt I had violated my innermost self and didn't want to suffer like that anymore." Schneider had a change of heart about the film in her later years. She said in the 2007 interview, "I can now look at the film and like my work in it. The film itself did not impress Schneider as much." She told Moira Sullivan at the 2001 Kreitel Films des Femmes International Women's Film Festival, "Last Tango is typically 70s and the style is a little quiche today, and it got old." I will go through some of the dialogue on my Facebook threads. With a few exceptions, I will leave out last names, as I prefer to explore this phenomena rather than engage in personal attacks. I reserve my ill will for the anti-male ideology that inspires proponents to wrangle and finagle over the definition of rape. Sutpin wrote, "A multitude of Nimrods are calling it rape when it isn't even in the same ballpark as that. But the Nimrods want to expand the definition of rape so epically that it would take a ballpark to hold the definition's various new features and subsections. Leslie said that a man forcing himself on a woman is rape even if no penetration occurred. John wrote, "It was a sexual act performed without her consent. That's rape." Karen Pudick, a writer and producer, wrote, "Rape could be verbal, rape could be emotional. Rape of the soul, as Russians say." My dictionary makes no reference to rape of the soul. More than one person provided the actual dictionary definition of rape, but it in no way deterred the rape accusers from their onslaught. Stefan got particularly upset to be presented with the legal definition of rape. He said, Regardless of the definition, these men needed to have been punished for their scummy behavior. It's fine if you see this as scummy behavior, but no civil or criminal statute addresses in specific terms scummy behavior. Kate Gilroy, a producer, debated Supton on this matter. Stephan interjected, "There is physical rape and psychological rape, just like there are physical war injuries and PTSD. Marie Schneider might not have been physically raped, but it sounds like the experience messed up her life and resulted in a kind of PTSD with serious and lasting effects. You lose the argument if you accept the silly make-believe term psychological rape. Rape is a physical act. A physical act is a physical act. It's like talking about psychological walking or psychological mountain climbing. After it became impossible to accuse Brando of rape, the goalpost was moved and Brando was accused of sexual assault. Martha justified an accusation of sexual assault on the basis of the following. The victim was left traumatized. The violation was sexual in nature. The actress having no choice in saying no, and no knowledge of what exactly would be happening. Gilroy readily agreed. She wrote, "Yes, it's obviously sexual assault, Martha. No consent from Schneider, power position prevented her from saying no." Gilroy got furious with people who did not agree with this. She typed in all caps, "Can we please stop defending Bertolucci? She did not consent to having that specific sexual experience, and she suffered forever after." Sexual assault is a physical act that is performed for sexual pleasure and involves unwanted contact with another person. It could be groping or fondling or kissing. Crooked Greta wrote, "Daddy, she was forcibly humped by a fat ass while being shoved face down on a hard floor." Sure, humping could be a form of unwanted contact, but the humping in this situation was not forced upon the woman. It was part of a consensual dramatic scene. It would be extremely difficult to prove in court that the actress's participation in the scene was non-consensual. She agreed to perform the scene, which was outlined specifically in the script. The butter business was an incidental improvisation that the actress was informed about before filming began. She agreed to this as well. It is obvious in the scene that the butter was not sprung on her. Brando did not do a magic act where he suddenly pulled the bar of butter out of his sleeve. The actors repeatedly refer to the butter in the scene before it is introduced. Schneider retrieves the butter from the kitchen and throws it at Brando. An argument has been put forth that Schneider's consent in the matter was defective because it was obtained through emotional coercion and psychological force by Bertolucci. Okay, let's go with that idea for a moment. Using torturous methods of manipulation to compel a person to perform a sex act falls into the category of sexual assault. Many methods are known to bend a person's will. A master of psychological torture and manipulation will, according to Wikipedia, attempt to destroy the subject's normal self-image by removing them from any kind of control over their environment, creating a state of learned helplessness, psychological regression, and depersonalization. Other techniques include forced nudity and head shaving, sleep deprivation, hooding, and other forms of sensory deprivation. But Schneider's experience making Last Tango fails to rise to the level of criminal coercion. An actor will voluntarily relinquish their self-image or engage in psychological regression for a role. They might shave their head or get naked. Schneider was not imprisoned on the set. Despite his effort to stimulate an emotional reaction from Schneider, Bertolucci did not induce fear or humiliation in the actress in a way that is defined under the law. Mock anal rape for a film drama is not comparable to a mock execution in a military prison, which is classified as torturous manipulation under the law. Brando was not liable for criminal prosecution either. He was paid as an actor to simulate a sex act, which is different than a man engaging in contact with a woman for his own sexual pleasure. As Wikipedia says, head shaving is a technique for psychological abuse, although physical contact and physical harm is involved. But actresses often shave their heads for a film role. They are not concerned if it will make them look ugly or not. They do this willfully for the benefit of the role. So, this scene of a woman getting her head shaved in The Wolf of Wall Street is not torture. Even if the woman finds that her husband won't have sex with her until her hair grows back, even if she develops feelings of shame and regrets having done the scene, it is still not by any reasonable estimation torture. Many people were fixated on the idea that a young woman was manipulated by older, powerful men. A woman wrote, "She was 19." This suggested that she was too young to give valid consent. Others echoed this sentiment with the greatest of emphasis. Pudick wrote, "When Maria agreed to do this film, she was only 19. I don't think you understand these things when you're a kid." Christopher Breslin, an actor, wrote, 19 years old! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. That's so messed up if you ask me. Gilroy wrote, "Okay, so a teenage actress was put in a sexual position where she didn't believe she could refuse to participate. There's really no way she could have refused given all the circumstances." Jessica Chastain, best known for her starring role in Zero Dark 30, wrote, "To all the people that love the film, you're watching a 19-year-old get raped by a 48-year-old man. The director planned the attack. I feel sick." What does Chastain know about real acting? She works on green screen sets where a bar of butter is likely to be a computer graphic. Yes, Schneider was 19 years old. She was regarded under widely accepted legal standards to be sufficiently mature to make contract decisions and all other important life decisions. She was a professional actress. Warren Beatty met Schneider while she was working as an extra in Les Femmes. She was only 15 years old at the time. Holly Malone of the Daily Beast noted that at the time she was a streetwise vagabond. Beatty said, "She was wise and didn't talk much." Last Tango was Schneider's sixth feature film. Schneider, as a streetwise actress who had been acting since the age of 15, was capable of understanding her obligations as an actress, understanding the film's themes, and making decisions for herself. Gilroy was not hearing any of this. She wrote, "I am blown away by the defense of this abuse when it's clear that this teenager was damaged at the hands of these two men." Dean Treadway, the host of Filmicability with Dean Treadway, responded, "The whole idea of calling her a teenager when she was of legal age is pure spin at its most unctuous." "Holy shit, Dean," wrote Gilroy. "You don't have a daughter, do you?" Dean remained calm and reasonable. He wrote, "No, I don't have a daughter. Does having a daughter make one especially expert in rape? When my daughter or sister would have gotten this role, I would have said, 'This is pretty strong stuff. You think you can handle it?' And if she said sure, I'd have said okay." Anyone who aspires to be an actor must decide if he has the fortitude to handle the demands of acting. Let us discuss the hardship of acting. Leonardo DiCaprio waded through freezing rivers and slept in an animal carcass for The Revenant. Malcolm McDowell allowed his eyes to be pinned open for A Clockwork Orange, which led the actor to become temporarily blind when the pin scratched his cornea. But this is physical hardship. I want to discuss the hardship that results when an actor gets caught up in the emotions of a scene. A little girl petting a kitten is not drama. It is only drama if the kitten is dying of renal failure or the kitten suddenly scratches the little girl in the face. Drama is exciting, it is emotional, or it is unexpected. The actor willingly winds his way into the pulsing, steaming heart of drama. This makes the experience of acting exciting, emotional, or unexpected. It may not be an experience that the actor remembers fondly. Playing a character that is being forcibly sodomized is a humiliating experience, regardless of the fact that everything being done is only pretend. But the pretending and everything that comes with it is the job. It is a job that Schneider and others commonly accept for better and for worse. It doesn't follow that because Schneider experienced distress while making the film, we have to assume that a crime was committed. Ned Beatty had to act as if he was being raped for Deliverance. It was not easy for the actor. Co-star Burt Reynolds wrote in his autobiography, Boorman reassured Ned, but also brought in several additional cameras, knowing Ned wasn't going to give him a second, third, or fourth take. Ned was only going to do the brutal scene once. Beatty said, the scene wasn't going to be particularly physical the way it was written, but when we came up to start to getting ready to actually doing it, Mr. Boorman said, I just don't believe it. I don't believe this guy is going to drop his laundry and sort of give in to this. I want you to run. I said, fine, I'll run. This led Bill McKinney, who played the rapist, to chase Beatty up a hill, pull on his underwear, slap him, and grope his breast. The scene would not have been nearly as humiliating for Beatty if not for this business, which wasn't in the script. McKinney said, Beatty played it. He allowed himself, as far as I can see, in his own mind and heart to be violated. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage for a man to do that. He's one hell of an actor. On the film's release, Beatty was widely praised for his fearless performance. In the 1990s, there was online chatter that Beatty was raped for real. Shockingly, the source of the story was Reynolds, who had said in an interview, Bill McKinney was actually penetrating poor Ned. Reynolds maintained the rape story in his 1995 autobiography. He cast himself as a hero who rescued Beatty. He wrote, I ran into the scene, dove on McKinney, and pulled him off. Boorman, hot on my tracks, helped hold him down. Ned, who was crying from both rage and fear, found a big stick and started beating him on the head. Half a dozen guys grabbed Ned and pulled him away. We separated the two of them and let things cool off. The story, according to others, was not true. Roger Clark, author of Story of the Scene, the inside scoop on famous moments in film, wrote, Deliverance was the beginning of an unpleasant journey for Ned Beatty, a stage actor in his very first film role. He actually felt he had been raped, recalls Boorman. In 1989, Beatty wrote a heartfelt editorial for the New York Times in which he revealed he had been stigmatized for 20 years as a result of the scene. Strangers still call out, squeal like a pig to him on the streets. Playing a demanding role can take a real toll, emotionally and physically, on an actor. An actress can be changed forever by playing Blanche Dubois on stage night after night. Kate Winslet was deeply affected by her role in The Reader. She said that it took her months to recover. She said, It's like I've escaped from a serious car accident and need to understand what has just happened. An actor can evoke realistic emotions by drawing on personal experiences. Wikipedia reports, when these emotions are not compartmentalized, they can encroach on other facets of life, often seeming to disrupt the actor's psyche. This occurs as the actor delves into previous emotional experiences, be they joyful or traumatic. Actors have a job to do. It is a job that sometimes involves doing something that is humiliating or painful. It might just be something like letting a fat-ass man hump you. Directors sometimes like to surprise an actor for a shock effect. Looper reported, the chest-bursting scene from Alien ranks among the most iconic moments in all of sci-fi film history. And perhaps that's partly because the cast involved in the scene really didn't know what was about to happen to them on the set and were genuinely disturbed by it. Director Ridley Scott explained his reason for letting the creature's big reveal happen in real time during the shoot, saying, the reactions were going to be the most difficult thing. If an actor is just acting terrified, you can't get the genuine look of raw animal fear. Veronica Cartwright, a cast member involved in the scene, said, I tell you, none of us expected it. The fake blood hitting the actress in the face caused her to pass out. JoBeth Williams was startled to find that Tobe Hooper had decided to use real skeletons as props in the climax of Poltergeist. Marilyn Burns didn't know what to expect when Gunnar Hansen showed up in his Leatherface costume on the set of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. She said, "I thought he was really going to hurt me. You couldn't see through the stupid mask." Men were not immune to this sort of treatment. USA Today reported in reference to The Exorcist, in the scene when Father Dyer is attempting to administer last rites to Father Karras, Friedkin was not satisfied after several takes and took William O'Malley aside and asked, "Do you trust me?" O'Malley said yes, just in time to get slapped across the face. Friedkin immediately said action, and the result is what one sees in the film. Looper reported, there was little interaction between the cast and directors of the Blair Witch Project. To scare the cast, the director stalked the actors, rattled their tents while they were sleeping, and restricted their food so they would become angry and exhausted. The cast was deprived of sleep and food so they would seem exhausted and distressed for the camera. During the golden age of Hollywood, child actors were often manipulated to bring them to tears. Director Norman Turog needed child actor Jackie Cooper to cry for a scene in Skippy. His solution was to have a security guard take the child's dog behind the stages and fire his gun to make it seem as if he had shot the dog. Janet Leigh was so traumatized by her death scene in Psycho that she was too afraid to take a shower ever again. This is not to say that the director does not sometimes cross the line. Take, for example, the way that Stanley Kubrick treated Shelley Duvall during the making of The Shining. Looper reported, Duvall said, "From May until October, I was really in and out of ill health because the stress of the role was so great. Stanley pushed me and prodded me further than I've ever been pushed before. It's the most difficult role I've ever had to play." She reportedly was so worked up during the shoot that she had to keep bottles of water nearby to stay hydrated through all of the crying that she did during the production. And she even presented the director with clumps of her hair to show just how unwell she was at the time. It didn't help matters that Kubrick made Duvall do her baseball bat scene a record-setting 127 times. Co-star Jack Nicholson later credited her part as the toughest job that any actor I've seen had because 40% of that picture, she's hysterical. But he also thinks there was some useful method to Kubrick's madness. He beat Shelley into that performance, he said. "If that was me, I don't know what I would do. I do not. I still wonder. You're supposed to be able to do it, but for 4 months? But she did it. She's brilliant in the movie." Sandra Peabody was threatened with violence to get her worked up for a scene in The Last House on the Left. This was recalled by actor Mark Scheffler in the DVD commentary track.
Anyway, what happened here was she wasn't getting this scene. She wasn't at the anxiety level that she needed to be. So we'd done it, I can't remember how many times, but enough times that I was getting annoyed, a lot of times, right. I was getting annoyed, Wes was getting annoyed, everybody was getting annoyed. So I said to Wes, I said, "Give me a minute with her." And what I did was, you can't see it on the shot, but we're like over a cliff. I took her and I put her over the cliff. I just grabbed her and went like this and said, "If you don't get this fucking scene right now, I'm going to drop you. I'm going to fucking drop you right now, and Wes will shoot it and Vic will shoot it, and we'll have a different scene, but it'll work because you'll be fucking mangled." And I said, "You better fucking get this." And I had one hand behind my back and I was signaling Wes, and I went like this from the roll of film. And I brought her back up, and she was so nervous and so scared when I brought her back up that she hit the mark right. She hit it.
Schneider had good reason to feel resentful after Last Tango came out. She didn't share in the film's abundant profits, another contract issue, and she was shamed in the press for her sexually explicit role. Actress Isabella Gianni said, "People wanted to brand her with a scarlet letter." It proved to be a persistent problem for Schneider. Johnny witnessed this firsthand while working with the actress on The Repentant. She said at the time, "The jokes, the giggles, on the street, in the restaurants, it still goes on sometimes." The press undoubtedly caused Schneider great stress, which is a shame. This also happened to Linda Blair, who was barraged with intense questions about religious faith and demonic possession after the release of The Exorcist. But the angry mob on Facebook didn't understand Schneider's resentment, and they jumped to awful conclusions. Jeannie wrote, "It's no wonder Marie Schneider struggled so horribly the rest of her life. So sickening that Bertolucci has the sick nerve to say he didn't regret it because it worked for the scene. Pig." The problems that she had in later years with depression and drug addiction cannot reasonably be traced to the notorious scene. De Niro and Scorsese had to put 17-year-old actress Juliette Lewis through a series of intensely emotional scenes for Cape Fear. Can you blame De Niro and Scorsese for the fact that Lewis later ended up in rehab? Lewis said, "I was always very aware of what was happening. I never felt taken advantage of. Actors end up in rehab. Actors come out of rehab. It's something that happens." Schneider was not deterred by her depression, her drug addiction, or Last Tango. Maura Sullivan, a film critic who once interviewed Schneider, wrote, "Why is this film still considered Schneider's downfall when she went on to make over 40 films?" The angry mob didn't care to know that Schneider remained friends with Brando. Nancy wrote, "Have you heard of the Stockholm Syndrome?" Sandra wrote, "Being close friends with your assaulter has zero correlation to not having actually been assaulted or subsequently scarred. We should know this by now. In fact, it's recognized as a strategy employed by victims to maintain a kind of control over what happened and to keep our enemies closer. Is this what happened here? I can't know, of course, but it is most certainly plausible." The angry mob got angrier and angrier. Matthew was astounded by the level of anger. He assumed that the mob wanted to have Bertolucci kicked out of his wheelchair and hung from the nearest tree. Grenville actually called for Bertolucci to be fucked in the ass. I suppose we can do that after we kick him out of the wheelchair and before we hang him. Carol Ballard, the producer, was displeased with anyone who defended Bertolucci. She quickly dismissed their arguments with lines like, "Resolved. Some unenlightened old white guys just don't get it." Or, "I just love it when white guys weigh in on how this just isn't a big deal. Speaks volumes." An Hispanic man named Juan found the debate to be racist. He wrote, "This is classic contemporary bullshit identity politics at its finest. The Ministry of Truth dictates Brando gets an alpha macho pass, Schneider gets a pussy pass, and some foreign man takes the blame. One woman harumphed that Last Tango in Paris was too much of a man's film, which presumably meant that it was disgusting whether a rape occurred or not. Similar comments were made by others. Pudick wrote, "It's a film about males, aggression, tyranny, virility, passion, etc." Matthew David Wilder, the screenwriter of Dog Eat Dog, wrote, "Fine, let's make the world safe so that culture can consist of a 24-hour transparent marathon and some highly gender-forward Marvel movies." He added, "I forgot to throw in the Ruth Bader Ginsburg biopic directed by Ava DuVernay." How dare these people not have understanding of the plight of women? One person suggested that the only reason people were willing to defend Bertolucci and Brando was because the predator-elect had now further perpetuated and legitimized rape. A scene that I wrote for a class in college required me to act out an argument with a classmate. I started the scene with a cigarette in my mouth. I don't smoke, so I didn't like keeping the cigarette in my mouth. Instead, I waved it around. In the end, I spontaneously flicked the cigarette at my fellow actor. I expected the cigarette to strike his chest, but my aim was bad and the cigarette hit his cheek. He later told me that getting the cigarette thrown at him startled him and got him angry. He thought the cigarette came too close to his eye for comfort. Fortunately, the cigarette had burned out by this time in the scene. He wanted nothing more than to kick my ass. He used that anger in the scene as he thrust himself forward at me. He was later told by people that this was the most thrilling moment of the scene. I apologized for my impulsive act, but he thanked me for doing it. We created drama. Brent did not approve of my story. He responded, "So this was art? More like two self-absorbed jackasses devoid of integrity, ethics, or any sense of harm." The most profound art blurs the line between creativity and reality. At one point in my college scene, my co-star delivered a speech in which he complained about the decline of masculinity. Men, he said, were not as strong as men used to be. He let me know after we performed the scene that he was affected by this speech. "You know," he said, "I'm gay." I did not know he was gay, and to be honest, I did not know how to react to his revelation. I cannot say that I truly understand the significance that the masculinity lament had for him as a gay man, but I do know that the words that he recited as an actor had made a connection to something in his personal life. The speech allowed art and experience to interact. His experience empowered his art, and his art empowered his experience. That is the way that good art works. I was accused of being an unenlightened man because I didn't understand the trauma that a woman experiences when a man has unwanted contact with her body. Sure, I get it. I do not have a vagina, and I have never had a man poking around to get inside my vagina. But having a foreign object hit you in the eye is still an issue of body integrity. For me, personally, I would rather a person flick a cigarette at my dick's balls than flick it at my eyeballs. Gilroy insisted that Schneider would not have been brought to tears and hated Bertolucci for the rest of her life unless she was raped. She indicated that "felt a little raped" is the way that a French woman says that she was raped. It is an interesting but ultimately unpersuasive argument to say that Schneider was being gallically demure. The real problem, it seems to me, is that Bertolucci was not being demure enough, which is a trait of Italian artists. We cannot expect other cultures to express themselves in the same way that we as Americans do. The director's remarks inevitably lost something on their trip across the Atlantic. So let us take that into consideration when we evaluate those remarks. Italians are more passionate than Americans. Italian filmmakers in particular express themselves in flamboyant and sometimes overblown ways. Adjectives are thrown without caution to the wind. It was, after all, the Italian dramatists that created opera, so you should expect operatic feelings to burst forth from these men. Feelings are overemphasized, pleasure is brought to cosmic heights, pain is inflated to epic proportions. It is reasonable to dismiss statements they make as mere rhetorical flourish and nothing to be taken seriously. It is a culture where every idea or experience must be broken down in terms of feelings: joy, love, regret, grief, shame, pity, hatred, and so on. So let us break down the emotions that Bertolucci expressed in his statements. "I've been, in a way, horrible to Maria, and I think that she hated me, but I do not regret. I wanted Maria to feel, not act, the rage and the humiliation." Bertolucci had made similar remarks while talking to Jeffrey McNabb of The Guardian. He said, "Poor Maria. I didn't have the occasion to go ask her to forgive me." He refers to hate, rage, and humiliation. He says I was horrible. He says poor Maria. He says ask her to forgive me. This is an Italian having a Catholic guilt fit. Bertolucci could be criticized for not protecting Schneider psychologically after the scene. A director is responsible for keeping up constant communication with an actor to assure the actor is comfortable with a scene and isn't feeling distressed. Bertolucci realizes this, and it is the reason that he feels guilty, but his expression of guilt is not necessarily in proportion with his misdeed. Roberto Benigni was inordinately passionate about his lackluster 2002 film Pinocchio. A reporter asked him what he thought the story of Pinocchio was about. "Beauty," he cried. "It's about beauty." The filmmaker generally promoted the film by bouncing around like Daffy Duck and squawking, "Beauty, beauty!" In 2015, Benigni starred in an inspirational one-man show called Love and Happiness. For 2 hours, the actor was unable to go for more than 10 seconds without ejaculating the word love or the word happiness. Dino De Laurentiis bloviated when he toured the interview circuit to promote his 1976 remake of King Kong. "No one cried when Jaws died," Dino said, his voice rising in passion. "But when the monkey died, people gonna cry. Intellectuals gonna love Kong. Even film buffs who love the first Kong gonna love ours. Why? Because I know give them crap. I don't spend $2-3 million to do quick business. I spend $24 million on my Kong. I give them quality. I got here a great love story, a great adventure, and she rated PG for everybody. John Belushi was inspired to borrow parts of this overblown speech for a sketch on Saturday Night Live. An argument was made that if a rape occurred on screen in 1971's El Topo, it could have happened in Last Tango. Glenn Wright, author of Nightmare Alley blog, wrote in detail about the alleged El Topo rape. Alejandro Jodorowsky, the star writer and director, said that he had actress Maria Lorenzio hit him hard in the ribs to get him riled up for the scene. He then wrote, I said, now it's my turn. Roll the cameras. And I really raped her. And she screamed. Wright wrote, the notion of allowing mere decency to impede the making of his movie would likely have struck Alejandro Jodorowsky as sinful. It has been argued by those who know Jodorowsky that the filmmaker only told this outrageous story to perpetuate the notoriety of the film. He has worked hard to develop a powerful myth that could sustain interest in the cult film. Turdad Derekshani of the Philadelphia Inquirer wrote, Jodorowsky said that to watch El Topo is to have an actual religious experience. Excuse me for resorting to an earthy vernacular, but it strikes me that the director is talking shit. We see Jodorowsky knock the woman down and tear off her clothing, but the rape is never seen. It is only implied. Why then would this man need to penetrate the woman for the purposes of the film? The idea of an actor raping another actor on camera is beyond anything that I can imagine. But either I am naive or Jodorowsky is mad. In either case, I have no interest in defending him further. In the end, the story has no relevance on the Last Tango debate. One man said that when he heard this latest story about Last Tango, he literally threw out his copy of the film. The destruction of the film was a popular theme in this debate. So many people instantly advocated for the burning of the film. Jenna Fisher, star of The Office, demanded the film be burned. One person on Facebook said that she wanted to take a flamethrower to the film. Another person said that he would burn down any theater that dared to show the film. If an actor or director upsets these people, they want to see the films of these people go up in flames. I once read a post from a person who thought that every John Wayne film should be burned because Wayne supported the Vietnam War. Every month, calls for film burnings pop up on Facebook. I can't keep track of the actors who have incurred this type of wrath. The other ones who stand out in my memory are Bill Cosby, Mel Gibson, and Clint Eastwood. I think Eastwood said that he planned to vote for Trump, who was being called a rapist at the time. I am surprised that once the Last Tango controversy broke, no one on my Facebook threads called for the burning of The Godfather. Bertolucci released a statement to defend himself. He said, somebody thought and thinks that Maria had not been informed about the violence on her. That is false. Maria knew everything because she had the script where it was all described. The only novelty was the idea of the butter, and that, as I learned many years later, offended Maria, not the violence that she is subjected to in the scene, which was written in the screenplay. Vittorio Storaro, the director of photography on Last Tango in Paris, also came out to address the controversy. He said, it's something that some ignorant journalists put together. I was really disgusted by what was written, which is not true at all. I think the journalists are making an issue that is not really an issue. I read that there was some kind of violence made on Schneider, but that's not true. That's not true at all. That's terrible. I was there. We were doing a movie. You don't do it for real. I was there with 2 cameras and nothing happened. Nobody was raping anybody. The feminist fanatics dismissed what Storaro had to say. They decided that this old man could not be trusted because he looked creepy. It was the smile. They said he had a creepy smile. No, seriously. And one woman said he was probably having a good laugh with the equally creepy Woody Allen, with whom he was now working on a new film. But the rest of us should listen to Storaro. Storaro said, Maria knew perfectly well what she was doing. She knew pretty well what was happening in every scene. She was an actress and had no problems with this. It was an acting job, not something else. He was asked what happened on the set the day the butter scene was shot. He said, "I only know that Maria was there like every normal scene and knew we were doing a love scene, even if it was a quite unusual film scene. Everything was written down, but every morning, Bernardo loved to add something. They added something with Brando in every scene, but that was quite normal. They loved to do this. We knew the script and we knew what we wanted to do, but every morning you come up with different ideas, so you are specifically discussing that scene in that moment." Storaro was asked what he remembered about the atmosphere on the set. He said, "It was a fantastic period from the very first day. Brando was a very intelligent person, so we knew very well the way that Bernardo and I wanted to visualize the story. It was a wonderful atmosphere. Brando was so nice, so generous. In the apartment there was a great energy. When you came into the apartment every morning, you could feel that it was a wonderful way to make a movie. We were a very small crew, and we had a wonderful time in doing the movie together." What about Maria? He said, "Maria in the beginning, she was kind of snobbish in a French way, as if to say, I don't care about Brando, a big American movie star, and Bertolucci, a great Italian director, and so on. But as we went on in the film, she was crying that the film was ending, that this fantastic experience was coming to an end too soon. That's something I remember very well. Like everybody in this wonderful atmosphere, she was so sorry that this movie was ending." Schneider agreed with Storaro that it was a pleasure to work with Brando. She said in the 2007 interview, "Undoubtedly, my best experience about making the film was my encounter with Marlon." I thank Mr. Storaro for clarifying what went on during the making of the butter scene. You can dismiss him as a creepy old man if you want, but his eyewitness account of the incident is credible and weighty and means a lot more than the wild speculations on social media. I admire Greg Wall for his passionate defense of Bertolucci and Brando. He offered the easily swayed award to a person who wrote, "Awful, two of my favorite artists who I now hate." Wall found the original article to be a phony baloney clickbait outrage meme, but he acknowledged in the end that the outrage of these people had to run its course, and there was, in his words, no talking them down. I thank you for watching. Please click the like button below and subscribe to my channel.